What up, YouTube fam? anthonytoglife back with another video. I wanted to keep this one simple. I know it doesn't quite seem like it based off of the way this video started, but I always wanted to try something like that. So I tried it. I definitely don't plan to do a ton of those. Definitely takes too much time. And sometimes these YouTube videos, it could definitely take some work to put them together. So today I just wanted to just sit down, chill and chat, because I haven't done that in a while. I haven't went live in a while. So I just want to sit down, chill with you guys, and talk about gear and how an abundance of gear makes me a worse photographer. Now, this goes without saying, but it's the internet, so you have to say it. Everything I'm about to say in this video is just how it personally affects me. My personal feelings, my personal experiences. This is not to say that having a lot of gear will make anyone else a worse photographer. I could be the only one that this impacts, and that's totally fine. Not looking for any explanation, anything. I just want to tell you guys how I feel about it. Maybe you can relate, maybe you can't, that's cool. We just chilling. So over the years, like a lot of photographers, I have acquired a lot of gear, and I would say, probably 75% of it is gear that I just wanted, not gear that I felt that I needed or that it would inherently improve my photography. But I feel like even that 75% that I wanted, I still felt like in some way it would improve me as a photographer, whether that's in the pictures that I was getting or my workflow or my efficiency, something. Still felt like, I wasn't just getting it just for the sake of getting it. It's like I want it, but it's gonna make me better. And for me, it's really been the opposite. And there's really three main points that I want to touch on as to why I feel like it has made me worse and not better. The first one is that when you have a lot of gear, well, let me not say when you have a lot of gear, because I'm speaking specifically to me. Me having the gear that I have, multiple bodies, multiple lenses, every time when I'm going to a job or a creative shoot, or I'm meeting up with other photographers, it requires me to give thought into what I want to take for that shoot. And while for a lot of people that may not be an issue at all, for me, being an analytical guy, a very detail-oriented guy, I put too much thought into it than maybe what's necessary. And of course you could say, well, just don't put too much thought into it, but that doesn't work for someone that's an analytical, detailed person. So I put way too much thought into it, and it really adds a level of, and I use this very, very, very lightly, but it adds a level of stress in getting ready to go do a shoot, because instead of just grabbing, the one body that I have and one or two lenses, I'm having to decide between 4 or 5 bodies, 7, 8 lenses. What do I need to take? And now, of course, there are certain situations where it does make sense to take a certain lens, right? If I was going to do a headshot, would it make sense to take a 35? No. Could I do it with the 35? Of course. But if I have an 85 or a 7200, it would make more sense to take that, right? So sometimes it's a little bit easier to make that decision, but oftentimes when it comes to doing a portrait thing, having to figure out what to take is just an unnecessary level of stress, where if I had, you know, like I said, one body and a couple lenses, boom, that's what goes in the bag. That's what I'm using. There's nothing to figure out. That's what I have. That's what I'm going to make work. And you could say, well, just take everything. Well, there's downsides to that as well. If I'm on a location doing a photo shoot and I've got 5 lenses, I'm not going to be swapping between all of those lenses. Not only would that ruin the flow of the session, but even thinking about that, like, oh, now let me switch to it, it's just too much. So for me, more gear has not equated to making me more efficient or making me a better photographer, because oftentimes I'm thinking too much about what I need and what I should use. And in the end, I'm just kind of like, okay, I think I'll take this, and then I'm making it work. Like, I'm already starting the session not in the right mind frame. And I'm real big on, you know, mental space and mind frame and how you think about things, and that sets the tone for what you're going to do. So when I'm already like overthinking, don't know if I should take this lens or that lens, this body, to me, it just starts me off on the wrong foot. Second point is that when I try to just use a pared down piece of my gear set, I feel guilty about not using the other gear. Because you would just say, oh, well, just use one body and 2 lenses, and that's all you use, and that's that. Sounds good, sounds good. But I feel guilty about not using the other stuff because I bought it, it's there. It's like, man, you have it, you might as well use it, you paid for it. So I feel guilty about not using it. And people would say, well, just sell what you don't want. That also makes sense, but I've never been the type of guy that really cared enough or wanted to go through the hassle of selling stuff. It's just not my thing. Never really has been. Don't know if it ever will be. I'm just not that guy, right? And a lot of times you don't get anything for it, and it's like, well, it's kind of like, you know, you go trade your car in. You know, the car is worth $8,000. You go to trade it in, they want to give you $1,500. It's just not worth it. It's like I would rather just keep it than take the $1,500. Because see, not only am I an analytical guy, but I'm a principle guy. Principle is huge to me. So it's like selling isn't my thing, you know. And look, that's just me. Okay, if you're a seller, that's cool. If you would sell your stuff, that's cool. I'm not a seller. We can leave it at that, right? So I feel guilty about not using the gear. So then it takes me back into you trying to use it all, because I feel guilty when I'm not using it. So that's number 1 and 2. And those are like whatever. Those aren't really a big deal at all. They're minor. I'm talking about them, but please don't think that like I'm crippled as a photographer, as a person because of this stuff. It's not that serious, I promise you. But the third point, the third thing, which is a big deal, is muscle memory. The whole gist of what muscle memory is that you're doing the same thing over and over and over again. So you get to a point where you don't even have to think about it, because you do it so much that it's the repetitiveness of it ingrains it in your brain. Like, you literally don't even have to think about it. There's so many things that we do every single day that you don't even think about because you do them all the time. In photography, muscle memory is huge. Knowing your gear is essential, because if you are at a session, especially something that is fast-paced or something where you have one opportunity to get that shot, if you have to change your setting, if you have to make an adjustment, if you need to do anything with that camera, you need to be able to do it without thinking about it, without looking at it. In a split second, you need to know exactly what you need to do, which way to turn a dial, which button to hit. You need to know what to do like that. The problem with having multiple camera bodies is that it makes it very difficult to really ingrain in that muscle memory. Now, Canon cameras, thankfully, ergonomically are very similar amongst different cameras, which is good, but there's still little nuances that are different that causes me a problem. For example, to change the ISO on my EOS R, I have to go into the menu because there's no designated button for it. Of course, I could use the little touchpad thing, which I've tried, but I don't like that thing. So for all intent, R, got to go into the menu. On the R5, there's a designated dial for it. You know, there's 3 dials, so I got a designated dial for it. On my 5D4, I have to hit a button and then turn a dial up at the top. So I've got 3 cameras that have a very easy way of changing the ISO, but they all have a different way of changing the ISO. And so if I'm using my R for a few sessions and I get used to how I have to do it with that, when I pick up the R5, I got to retrain my mind to not do that same thing and use the dial. If I've been using my 5D4 and I'm used to hitting a little button and turning the dial up here, then I pick up my R, I'm turning the dial up here, which changes the shutter speed. So now when I'm thinking that I'm changing my ISO, I'm changing my shutter speed. And it's hard to get to that point of a solid muscle memory state when you're constantly switching between different bodies. And that's why a lot of professionals will have the same body. Not only do they want the look to be the same amongst, you know, different cameras, but that muscle memory is key. If you're using the same bodies, then you don't have to worry about retraining your mind every time you pick up a different body. And so for me, that's been the biggest drawback of, you know, having, you know, 4 or 5 camera bodies, is that it's hard to get to that point where I remember right off the bat exactly what to do. Now, do I eventually get there when I'm using it? Absolutely. But could I have missed something in between that time? You bet. Have I missed stuff in between that time? You bet. So that's a problem. And that's the biggest thing that I would say is how it makes me a worse photographer, is that losing that muscle memory and potentially missing shots is a big deal. So those are the 3 points. Now the question is, okay, Ant, what you gonna do about it? I don't have an answer for that. I do not have an answer for that, because the gear that I have, I like the gear that I have. I don't want to sell the gear. I do like having certain things for certain stuff. For example, what I record these videos on. I pretty much only use this camera to record videos, and it's easy that way. You know, it's like just having the same camera, I can just set it up and it's easy. You know, I use my R5 for client work. I use my EOS R for just creative shoots and things like that. I do like having that segmentation because, you know, again, being an analytical guy, detail-oriented guy, I like that segmentation, and it keeps the wear and tear kind of spread out amongst the gear. So I do like that. And I have no desire to sell anything. And so what is the answer to my problem on how it's made me a worse photographer, or how do I plan to turn that around so that I can be a better photographer? I don't have an answer. I didn't intend to make this video to give you the answer because I don't have the answer. I don't know. You know, I think, you know, going forward, I think I may put more effort into just using a more pared down kit. You know, at one point I had a spreadsheet where, you know, for every type of shoot that I did, like this was the kit that I was going to take, just so that way I didn't have to think about it. I knew, okay, if I'm doing a portrait, I'm taking this body, these lenses, this flash, that. And that does work out really good. But, you know, sometimes when I'm just doing just a creative shoot, I don't go to that level of detail. But, you know, I think for me going forward, it's just, you know, figure out how to make it work with the constraints that I have. You know, if I'm the type that I want to have this gear, I don't want to sell it, then, you know, I have to just do what I have to do to make it work. And I guess that's what I plan to do. So I guess that's the answer. I'm just going to do what I have to do to make it work. So anyway, I know this was different than, you know, my other videos, and it's, you know, I don't have all the added stuff, and it's just me sitting here talking to the camera. And if you made it this far, man, I'm gracious. I appreciate you just listening to me talk for a little bit. You know, as a YouTube creator, sometimes this is just the video that you feel like making. Sometimes, you know, you don't feel like doing all of the production work to have this well-polished video. And I know I put a lot of stress on myself to try to make sure that each video is up to par, because I know that every video I put out is going to be the first time someone sees me, so I want to, you know, make a good impression. But you know, sometimes you just have to say screw it and just make a video that's easy, and that's what today was. I wanted to make a video that was easy, minus the beginning part. That took some work, but it was fun doing it because, like I said, I've always wanted to do it. So hopefully you've been well. You know, this video will not help you in any way, but you can help me and support me by giving the video a thumbs up anyway. I would really appreciate that. It does help, of course. As always, if you like this content or the other content and you don't want to miss out on the videos, go ahead and subscribe. Do like Anita Ward said, ring that bell. As always, you know, I appreciate every single person that watches my videos because you've got 100 different things you could be doing. So when you're sitting there on your phone or sitting on the couch watching your TV or on your computer and you got my mug on your screen and you listen to me talk, for real, I appreciate that. Like, it's not about numbers, money, nothing when it comes to YouTube. Like, I just appreciate you giving me your time. It means a lot. So thank you. Yeah, so cheers. Have a good day. And the next video, I'll be back to the regularly scheduled programming. So until the next one, take care.